Hey, Craig Dostie here with Dostie'sView. Going to take a look at the new Lynx V, what would we call it, 2.1, dare we? There have been a few changes, but they don't change the overall performance of the binding, except perhaps to make some of the features more reliable, theoretically, hopefully. All right, so I'm going to move the camera so we can see what's going on. Well, first of all, what's changed? The coil springs underneath here are supposedly longer. I know that the main flex plate has changed a little bit. It's just as thick as V2, but it's changed the tab here, the geometry of the tab. And then these toe springs are actually a little bit stronger. So I'm going to try and show you that. Some of this stuff is subtle, some is not so subtle. And some, I got to question if there was really a change. All right, let's get a closer look here. Okay, so here we have Lynx 2.0 from last year and 2.1 from this year. And just to repeat, these springs are supposedly different. The flex plate is slightly different, and these springs are different. Get a little light on that subject there. So let's measure these. Now, keep in mind that both these bindings have been used, so it's not fresh out of the box a measurement. But this spring here that's been used about a season, with it uncompressed, it's about 10.4 millimeters long. And the new one, after maybe a day of use, appears to be, well, maybe 10.6, 2 millimeters longer. I don't know that is significant enough to change the fact that, or the probability, it's not a fact, but in my mind, the probability that these new springs are going to compress and take a set, and you're going to need to add spacers so that the claw will continue to snap up, I think is really high. So it may change things that in the long run, instead of having to add 3 spacers that I did here, you might start with 1 and you might progress to 2 and hopefully end there. That would be nice. The other thing that changed was the flex plate, and basically the geometry of these tabs here, which were cracking. And these are replacements. I can kind of see a slight crack developing right there, but it hasn't fully cracked, all right? So for this year, 22 Designs made this a smoother transition. It's not so sharp, all right? But that hasn't changed the propensity, probability, likelihood of it still splintering there. So I think it's probably a wise idea to carry a spare one of these if you're going in the backcountry, or a pair. The other thing is, if these totally cracked off, I don't think that would render the binding useless. You just might have to change how you get into it, and I'll demonstrate a potential solution to that here in a minute. The other thing that changed, and I don't know if you can really see this very well, but these are both with the jaws open. And so the springs are as compressed as they're going to be, which means the gap, the space between the windings, should be more for a thinner spring and less for a thicker spring. And that's what appears to the eye here, is this appears to have less space between the windings than this. And I know that when I step into it, I can tell that it's a stronger snap, and it really closes tight and fast, which is a much needed improvement from the first year of production V1 of the Lynx, which had a phenomenon called the lazy toe. And I'm just going to put my foot in here and set it on. Now, you're going to have to take my word for it on this. That was definitely a stronger snap than the 2.0 Lynx toes, all right? Now, the other thing has occurred to me. What would happen if and when you're on a long tour and these tabs break? And then the claw is going to move closer than maybe you want it to. So you're not going to be able to step in, but you could put your duck butt in first and then step down. And I think that's just a good trick to have in the back of your mind in case you run into that problem. So what is the bottom line here? With this Lynx, okay? Is the splintering flex plate a deal breaker? Not in my opinion, okay? It's something to be aware of. You know, it's a very minor flaw when you consider all the other performance advantages of this binding, okay? It's lightweight. It's a pound per foot, but a pound and a tenth or something like that, whatever. It's light, okay? It's got a Dean efficient touring, super efficient 2-pin touring. You can't do better than that, all right? The claw allows step-in functionality. Sometimes it can give you some trouble, so you might have to add some spacers on the springs. Bring spacers with you. But all the other things, when you combine, okay, great, super efficient touring. It doesn't seem to pack with snow, or I've heard very few stories of it. And it's got 2 climbing posts that are spring-loaded, super easy to engage, and powerful downhill skiing with a kind of a leaf spring as your first level of engagement, which is instantaneous, and then coil springs, which actually give the tension, the pre-tension for the claw to work, to snap on, but also give extra tension as you lift your heel further. Honestly, fantastic binding. Splinters on the base plate, it'd be nice if 22 Designs can figure that out, but if they can't, look, I'm sure they're going to warranty that. When you notice it, send in for replacements, and probably if you find it's happening more often than you like, you get spares, right? Okay, because everything doesn't have to work perfectly. This works perfectly enough. I think it's freaking awesome backcountry binding and an inbounds binding, all right? Lynx from 22 Designs. Freeheel, your mind will follow. You don't have to follow the herd because you can telly and they can't. So spread tell 'em.